You informed on the day-to-day news. Live from West Bloomfield, we're bringing you the news, updates, and information impacting communities around Michigan. Join our host, Tyler Kieft, as he talks with community members, business leaders, and professional experts about the stories that impact you. You're watching the Megacast on Civic Center TV. The West Bloomfield Youth Assistants will be recognizing local youth for their volunteer service, personal growth, and leadership. Join us as schools, hospitals, and religious organizations nominate the up-and-comers in your community. Show your pride for our future. The Youth Recognition Awards, May 10th at 6 p.m. at the West Bloomfield Middle School. This community update from Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
There are many different kinds of noses. Our noses can sniff out all kinds of things. Good things and bad things. Your nose knows if those sniffles are just a cold, allergies, or COVID-19. So swab it. Test it. It's good to know.
How can you get involved with upcoming elections? West Bloomfield Township wants you to join the ranks as safe. If you're interested, go to wbtownship.org for more information or call the clerk's office with the number provided on screen. This community update from Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
You're listening to your radio homes for the Megacast, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Today's edition of the Megacast begins now. Welcome to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Oakland County and the state of Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Today we'll be talking to a number of people about topics of interest and importance to Michiganders just like you. Let's begin, as we always do, on our local news page on CivicCenterTV.com, exploring the latest headlines making news here in our local area and across the state of Michigan. Our top story today comes from Christina Hall at the Detroit Free Press. We've come a long way from this time just a few years ago and in seeing each other's faces department, with the bulk of the COVID-19 pandemic in the rearview mirror and much of our normal lives back in full swing. For some, masking has continued, but for others, it's gone back to being an afterthought. As of late, even measures put in place at healthcare facilities have relaxed on that front, with many local hospital systems and those throughout the state significantly reducing their mask requirements or eliminating them altogether. Part of that, according to Hall's article, is because of stronger preventative measures in place to treat cases of respiratory illnesses such as COVID-19 vaccines and boosters and therapeutics, as well as other highly effective treatments for COVID and other respiratory diseases, that according to Dr. Natasha Bagdasarian from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. That makes masks just one tool in the toolbox rather than the sole preventative measure in a sea of confusion and a barrage of often conflicting and ever-changing information on respiratory diseases of its kind. Some, says experts, should still mask up, and that doesn't necessarily apply to everybody anymore. Those who feel sick, those who have symptoms of COVID or other respiratory ailments such as the flu should definitely put on a mask to help prevent spreading that to other people, especially if you need to be out and about, either continuing to go to work in the case of someone that may have some flu-like symptoms, or you need to run to the grocery store, or you need to run to your local drugstore to get some medicine and pick up your prescriptions or whatnot. Wearing a mask is always a good idea in those cases if you're feeling a little bit under the weather. That way no one else has to feel under the weather with you, of course. We've learned that, unfortunately, the hard way over the last several years. If we've learned anything, we've learned it's a relatively painless step that can go a long way in preventing the spread of these kinds of diseases. There's plenty of more information on where we've come and where we've been in terms of mask wearing here in Michigan over the last several years from Christina Hall at the Detroit Free Press. Go ahead, click through to this article on our local news page right at the top on CivicCenterTV.com. It's an interesting look at where we are today and just how far we've come from the days a short time ago, just a few years ago, where seeing someone in a mask was a little bit off-putting, to then seeing someone's face being a potential threat during the pandemic, to now having a simple step that we were all used to, we've all done at some point over the last several years, and can add that to our own preventative toolbox to keep ourselves and our communities safe from these kinds of diseases going forward. Hey, maybe that means that flu seasons in the near future are going to be a little bit less severe than they were even pre-pandemic. And certainly during the pandemic, we saw that as people were masking, as people were distancing, as people were home, there was much less spread of flu and other respiratory diseases of that kind that we saw commonly season to season. Perhaps that will be the case going forward, as now we're a little bit more used to wearing masks when we're feeling under the weather, as had been happening in other parts of the world well before the COVID-19 pandemic. Also making news today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page from Justine Lofton at MLive. Another symbol of Michigan travel and tourism season is back in business. The Beaver Island Ferry has set sail between Charlevoix and Beaver Island for the warmer seasons, with the Beaver Island Boat Company running 3 ferry trips a week at this time, which of course will increase in May. At its peak in this season, several trips will be made per day as opposed to 3 or 4 per week between these two recreation and tourism hubs. So many amazing places that you can go all across the state of Michigan, whether it is Beaver Island or even Charlevoix, where the Beaver Island Boat Company docks this boat when it's going in between the island and the Lower Peninsula proper. There's so many great places all throughout southeastern Michigan and all around the state, whether you're up north in the northern Lower Peninsula, out on the west side of the state, and some of the beach communities over there on Lake Michigan. There's so much to do here in the state of Michigan, and as we see, these are some of those telltale signs that we're getting into the much warmer parts of the year, and some of those favorite activities of Michiganders, getting out on the water, enjoying boating, enjoying fishing, swimming in the lakes, whether it's inland or our Great Lakes throughout the state of Michigan, and of course all those fun outdoor events and festivals that happen all throughout the year that you can also learn more about throughout our network with programs such as My Fun. Across the state, like the Beaver Island Ferry going between Charlevoix and Beaver Island, now 3 times a week. Soon it'll be well above 3 times a week and be several times per day at the peak of the season. Plenty of fun ahead here in the state of Michigan as we are now well into the warmer seasons of the year, and hopefully that cold that we've seen of late even creep back in is in our rearview mirror in the near future. All those headlines are making news today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page, along with helpful public health links from the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as other public health matters from the CDC, the MDHHS, and the Oakland County Health Division. Hey, if you want to get even more information from what Christina Hall had written in the Detroit Free Press about just how effective wearing masks can be in preventing diseases even beyond COVID-19, just when you have that minor illness or that you're feeling a little bit under the weather, those are great resources to learn even more about just how effective that is in other places in the world, and now can be right here in Michigan all throughout each and every day. CivicCenterTV.com on our local news page. You'll find those links at the top of the page, as well as our top headlines today and every day during this week. And we'll keep those on our website, on our local news page, all throughout the weekend until right before our first live show of next week on Monday morning. We have a great program ahead on today's edition of the Megacast. Coming up next, it's our weekly mental health segment with Carrie Krawiec from the Birmingham Maple Clinic. Stay tuned. This is the Megacast.
Wondering what to say to someone who's been sexually assaulted or abused?
I believe you. I'm so sorry this happened.
It's not your fault.
Connect with us 24/7. Call 855-VOICES-4 or text 1-866-238-1454 for help. Learn more at Michigan.gov/voices4.
It's that time of year, Lakers. Gather round to honor our community's volunteers at the 51st Annual Michigan Week Awards. Countless members of the communities of Orchard Lake, Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and West Bloomfield give their time and talent daily without regard for recognition. Catch the live broadcast May 12th at 7 a.m. on CivicCenterTV.com or on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. This community update from Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
I'm Steve Eiserman of the Detroit Red Wings, and I think every child in Michigan deserves a safe, healthy, and happy childhood. Can we build a state where Children Trust Michigan isn't just a name, but something our kids believe? Please support Children Trust Michigan as the voice for children and families by visiting the website to learn more.
Like what you see? Beautiful works of art, masterworks of metal, and accomplishments of artistry will be on display near you. All kinds of artists from all walks of life come together to celebrate their skill and appreciate their work's beauty. Hot Works presents the 2023 Orchard Lake Fine Art Show. Stop by July 29th and 30th between 2 and 10 p.m. between Powers and Daly off of Orchard Lake Road.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. You can learn more about our program by visiting CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast, where you'll find more information on all of our partnering stations across the Great Lakes State, including My Michigan TV and other partnering stations right here in your hometowns in Oakland County. CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast. That's also the place to go to find each and every one of our full shows and each segment on demand as well. Whether you're able to join us for the entirety or just parts of our live shows Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11, you can always find us online on CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast. Before we get started on our first interview segment of the day, I do want to provide a trigger warning that we are talking about some sensitive topics here. If you have a history of sexual assault either in your life or in your family, and some of these topics may be triggering to you, I would encourage you to take a pause from watching our show today or skip through to about 15 or 20 minutes from now to our next segment so as to not put you in a place of trauma, as we're talking about a very important but obviously very traumatizing topic for a lot of people. Joining us now for our weekly mental health segment is Carrie Krawiec, a therapist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. Carrie, thank you for being with us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you on to talk about, as I had said, a very sensitive topic. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and there's so much to unpack when it comes to sexual assault and the impact that it can have on someone and on their family, on their friends, on their entire life, from the incident to years and years, even decades beyond that for the rest of their life. So let's just begin with some statistics. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, reports that every 73 seconds an American is sexually assaulted, and every 9 minutes that victim is a child. Now, sexual violence can be committed by anyone and against anyone at any time. There's not really one specific demographic, but there are so many different ways that sexual assault or other sexual violence can affect somebody both immediately and in the long term. Let's just dive in immediately and talk about some of the different ways that can affect people all across the board, given that this can happen to people across all different demographics.
Absolutely. And I think one of the important messages of this year's Sexual Assault Awareness Month is making these connections, that the umbrella of sexual violence covers so many behaviors. Of course, we've talked about rape, child sexual abuse, but it can also be, non-consensual touching, non-consensual sending lewd pictures to someone or sending pictures that have been sent to you to someone else, any kind of workplace sexual harassment or flirting or touching that exceeds somebody's sexual comfort. And so the range of potential behaviors that can be alarming have grown. And of course, our awareness of how people are affected has also grown.
And that's an interesting point too that you make, that it's well expanded beyond what the stereotypical view of what sexual assault or sexual violence had been in the past, where it was a groping incident or it was rape or something along those lines, to even things that seem like they could be more minor but are very much not, like non-consensual touching or flirting, because those things have happened so casually in our society for so long that they've become, in some ways, innate parts of certain environments and for certain people. So as we're considering our own behaviors in the workplace and in other social settings, and really in any setting, what are some of those behaviors that tend to lead into more problematic behaviors that go into this sort of category of sexual violence?
Well, I think even like you started, with this, with your lead in this morning, right, is that you don't know anybody's history with sexual trauma, but just statistically, like you said, something like 1 in 9 children under 18, 1 in 4 or 5 adults, female or male accordingly, so that at any given moment, you've got probably greater than a 20% chance of encountering someone who's experienced some form of sexual abuse, sexual assault, or sexual trauma. So any of those unwanted advances are potentially re-traumatizing a person, and you may never know. Now, some people move on from sexual trauma quite literally like nothing's happened. Either they truly move on like nothing's happened, or they're experiencing some sort of repression or numbing as a result. People may experience body symptoms, trouble sleeping, trouble concentrating, jitteriness, jumpiness, flashbacks of uncomfortable times. They may also experience emotional symptoms, uncontrollable emotional reactions, sort of like you use the word trigger, sort of easily triggered emotional reactions, either anger, anxiety, or sadness. They may experience other symptoms of pain, stomach discomfort. They may experience behavioral symptoms such as, attempts to numb, like self-harm or, violence to themselves, substance use or abuse, or, and also impact them in their relationships, either promiscuity and sexual acting out, or avoidance of sexual activity altogether. So it can really span different people, different ranges, different combinations of symptoms.
We're joined by Carrie Krawiec on today's edition of the Megacast. She is the therapist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. You can get in contact with Carrie and the team at the Birmingham Maple Clinic by visiting birminghammaple.com or calling their phone number at 248-646-6659 for a consultation and to schedule appointments. Carrie, there's so much to unpack when it comes to victims, when it comes to survivors of sexual assault and other sexual violence, because as you said, for different people, they may move on from those incidents very, very quickly. They may not have any symptoms at all. For others, those symptoms may remain latent. And for some, those symptoms may be something that they are hiding or keeping in quiet. And we know that going forward with admitting that, I've been a victim of this or that or the other, is a really tough step for these people to take. And so as you and as others in these people's lives, or even just individuals, let's just begin with the individuals themselves, as they're unpacking this situation they've been in and that they've been put through, this act of violence against them, what steps can they be taking to first find some of their own peace in this situation before, of course, without necessarily being pressured into saying that I've been a victim of this or I've been a victim of that act of sexual violence, which for some, A, is re-triggering them, and B, is putting them in a position where it sort of, unfortunately, is a taboo still to this day, and there's that element of embarrassment in some cases that also really plays a factor in people getting treatment that they need to deal with this trauma properly.
Sure. First and foremost is in taking the step and getting that bravery and confidence and taking a step is having the sense that you would or could be believed by somebody or anybody, and that you're not making it up or making a mountain out of a molehill or jumping to a conclusion, but that and really talking to a therapist or even a crisis line, and there are many crisis lines dedicated to sexual abuse, whether child, adult, and that you will be believed, that it's not your fault, and that you will not be accused of making a false allegation. The statistics on false allegations are remarkably low, well under 10% of allegations that are made, and then keeping in mind that many legitimate allegations never come forward, so are probably even lower still. But part of this, right, is being believed, and that your story means something. It is, like you said, the lines are so blurred that what makes one person uncomfortable, or what may seem different, or that we've somehow, right, at different ages, stages, generations may say, oh, well, that's not the same. And just knowing now that a violation of a person's body, and their comfort and their safety, whether in workplace, school, team, wherever, is a serious infraction, and that we are dedicated as a community to making people feel safe. What that might look like is different for different people, but that when a person comes forward and says, look, I have been made to feel unsafe, or I have been violated in some way, that initially it's heard, respected, accepted, and investigated accordingly.
Yeah, and that's a big point in this, is no one has to come forward. There should be no pressure for someone to come forward and admit that publicly, whether it's to a small group of trusted people in their lives, or certainly to the general public in any way, shape, or form. People should be able to recover and to address the trauma that they've faced on their own terms. But when they do that, what should those that they're admitting this to, that they're confiding in for on this, or just venting to about their experiences, what should they be doing on the other side of that, as they're listening to that person tell their story? And in some cases, it is the story of the worst moments of their life, to make sure that you are a calming, listening presence and aren't adding to some of that pain or anguish that these people may be feeling.
Well, certainly, I think reinforcing the bravery and confidence that it took to share that information, that just the honor and compassion of being a person that any person would reveal something intimate and vulnerable to, and that right, that you're there for them, and I think in the spirit of safety is just asking the person what they need. If they need an arm around them, if they need to be touched, or if they don't, if it's good enough to be there, if they'd like to talk about it, or if they don't, let the person, as the listening person, ask questions before you proceed, with anything. What would you like to hear from me? What can I tell you to let you know things will be okay? Is it okay if I sit closer to you or further away? And also modifying your own. If you're triggered too, the person revealing to you may not know your history either. To say, I need some time to process this myself, or this is bringing up some stuff for me that I need to check in with too, should also be okay. Certainly directing someone to a therapist, professional, crisis line, suggesting if something does need to be investigated, or bring, like you said, not forcing it, but like, would you like to bring this to the attention of local law enforcement? Would you like to bring this to attention of, a leader of a group or organization? What steps need to be taken? And just saying, I'm willing to walk those alongside with you as you're willing and ready. Like I said, certainly encouraging treatment for people who are struggling with symptoms, either physiological or emotional and behavioral. There are forms of treatment that are highly successful right now. EMDR is one that's gotten a lot of attention in treating trauma. It helps a person to separate their physiological and emotional reactions from their ability to be able to talk and process, which helps the therapeutic process and helps people sort of come to a new narrative about their own esteem, what happened to them, and how to move forward.
More information on resources for sexual abuse and assault. If you have been a victim and you do want to talk about that with someone, whether it be a professional, law enforcement, both, or just to speak about what you've gone through and have some crisis counseling available to you, Michigan.gov/voices4 is sexual assault and abuse resources, free and confidential, available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can also call them 855-864-2374, 855-864-2374, or the easiest way to remember it, 855-VOICES4. That's 24/7 free confidential sexual assault hotline provided by the state of Michigan. Joining us on the Megacast today is Carrie Krawiec, a therapist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. And more information and ways to get in contact with them, birminghammaple.com. Carrie, from a therapist's point of view, from a mental health professional's point of view, again, there's so much that can be gone through by people. I would believe that would mean that the treatment that they go through with a mental health professional can be varied and may be something that's slowly unpacked over time, so as to not re-trigger and re-traumatize that person and take them too much deeper into that situation they've been in. So from a mental health professional's point of view, where does that process usually go in terms of treatment? What does that look like? So that if someone is thinking about coming forward with a mental health professional, that they kind of have an idea of what they may be getting into.
Sure. Well, I think you bring up an interesting point. For some, when the awareness that perhaps there was something that happened in the past that crossed a line, or that there was an effect from something in the past to the present, sometimes there can be an eagerness to just share and overshare and get it all out. And then also that can in itself be traumatizing, and that a person can realize they've taken things sort of too far. And so a therapist, I think in the beginning, would just provide education and pace, and allow a person to know, like, we will get to this, we will get through all of this, but we're going to sort of touch base as we're going, as to not go too far too fast, even with each other, in terms of like intimacy in that relationship, and really model healthy boundaries. A therapist will ask permission or consent. May we talk about this further, or how are you doing as we're talking about this now? And like I said, so even if there is an eagerness, a trust, right, that the therapist is always motivated to make the environment safe to start and end each therapeutic session in a way that there is some closure, so that a person isn't perhaps left feeling sort of like raw and exposed as they're going out of their session back into their real life. There are different forms of treatment. Like I said, there's group therapy that can be beneficial. EMDR is a treatment method. Another one's called trauma-focused CBT, which is a method of sort of like creating sort of the mental things we've told ourselves as a result of an assault, and replacing those with more helpful messages to ourselves. So each treatment method is going to have a different beginning, middle, and end, and the therapists that are trained in those would be able to educate and offer explanation for why we're doing what at each step along the way.
And lastly, we live in a better informed world on these issues. These issues have come to light more and more in our society in recent years, and for good reason and for bad. It's horrible that we are hearing more and more of these stories, but it's good that we're hearing that this has been a problem in a number of different areas, and that those are starting in some ways and others to be addressed. So the big thing here is boundaries, especially in those more, for lack of better terms, minor incidences. Minor incidences in this regard are still major, and it ultimately comes down to boundaries. So if someone is, even if it's in a situation where they're just consoling someone in their life and they want to be mindful of those boundaries, not knowing their history, how should someone approach that softly and concerningly and with care?
Certainly, I could think knowing your own comfort level and being self-aware to say, hey, for example, I'm a really open person. I may overshare. I may, ask too many questions, and please, by all means, let me know your comfort level. If I've shared too much, or if I've asked too many questions, let me know where your lines are, and, sort of using that as, a place to start having a conversation before any conversation, what will we do if we're talking about something casually and then one of us is reminded of something that's happened in our life? How would I know that perhaps it's affecting you. And if a person knows, oh, well, my face turns very red, or I start to get a little jittery, it's having those conversations is a method of getting to know each other, is kind of a step towards intimacy before anything even more revealing comes out. Could be a very helpful tactic. It's often we just jump right into our lives and our conversations without thinking, do we know enough about each other to know what are our signs if we've crossed a line or boundary? Have you gotten too quiet? Have you gotten uncomfortable? Have you changed the subject? Kind of paying attention to those cues.
Carrie, appreciate you joining us to talk more about this issue, something that is very complicated, has a lot of layers to it, and it's been very helpful to unpack that in some ways and others and get more information, especially as we come to the end of April and recognize Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. Free resources available in the state of Michigan. The Michigan Sexual Assault and Abuse Hotline is available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 855-VOICES-4 is the phone number, 855-864-2374. You can also text that same line, 866-238-1454. And all of those resources, all those phone numbers, the online hotline chat, as well as text and call information can be found at Michigan.gov/voices4, Michigan.gov/voices and the number 4. We'll take a break on the Megacast. More news and information from across Oakland County and around the state of Michigan coming up after this break. We'll be right back.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important.
And now the same is true in the face of flu.
Influenza has the power to infect millions.
But it's easy to protect yourself, your family, and your community.
The flu vaccine is safe and effective. And with COVID-19 still around,
it's essential. Together we can face flu season head on.
Visit Michigan.gov/flu.
Many people are feeling overwhelmed and struggling with mental wellness these days. So be kind to your mind. Give yourself permission to breathe. Share your feelings. You are not alone. Have hope. Talk to a Stay Well counselor for free confidential help 24/7 through the COVID-19 hotline.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Oakland County and the state of Michigan. I'm your host, Tyler Kieft. More information about our partnering stations and find us on demand, civiccentertv.com/Megacast, your one-stop resource for all things the Megacast each and every day, including our live programs from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Well, over the past couple years, we've heard so much ups and downs in the housing market here in Oakland County and across the state of Michigan. Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? Is it neither? Where is it going in the near future? So many different questions left to be answered, and that's why we're bringing in an expert to get some of those answers right now. Stephen Betel is a broker at Nextdoor Lending and joins us now on the Megacast. Stephen, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you on. Let's start with that big question of where we're at right now in terms of the current trends in Michigan's housing market, and in particular here in Oakland County. We've heard so much in the past that it's a buyer's market or it's a seller's market, and it may flip and change over time. So where is the market at right now?
It's a great question, Tyler. So ultimately what I'm seeing is we're definitely shifting more back to the seller's market of things. We're seeing such a hard push on inventory, let's call it, and it's available for new buyers, that it's really pushed that to, hey, you have one house for 10 people that still want it and are still in the market to buy it. So obviously supply and demand is pushing things in an interesting perspective, let's say.
Yeah, definitely pushing things more toward the favor of those looking to sell a house versus those that are looking to get into a house. And that also plays a factor into financing. Given the state of the economy, correct, given the state of interest rates being risen by the Federal Reserve, and of course that affecting local banks that would be financing mortgages and so on and so forth. It's a different landscape now than it was even just a year ago in our housing market. So in terms of financing, how is that different now than it's been maybe in the past several years when economic times were better, or at the very least a little less volatile than they are now?
So that's a very good question, and something I talk to my buyers about all the time, because it is all about affordability. It's about what you're looking at and what you're investing in. I mean, a house is not a short-term play, so to speak. This is something you're going to be dealing with for years to come. So the biggest thing ultimately, again, is affordability and interest rates and things like that. So you're looking right now on average, and again, this is just a round number, 6 to 6.5% for a 30-year loan. Compared to 2-3 years ago, you're at 3%. On the average in Oakland County, you're looking at about $300 to $350 on a purchase price. So that could be that swing in interest rates could be $600 to $700 a month. So it's the substantial difference. It's the difference of people qualifying or being comfortable with their payment. So this is definitely something I have a conversation with all the time of, hey, are you comfortable with what you're doing? But the other side of that is, hey, if you are comfortable, this is the highest your payment's ever going to be. It's not like rents that are continuing to increase. Rates are at their peak, most likely, or give or take. They will come back down. Maybe not to the 3% we saw a couple years ago, but we are going to see some movement in the right direction. So if you can stomach the payment today, let's call it, you know that you're making a good investment that's going to only get better for you.
Yeah, and so unpacking that and thinking about the future and ideally better economic times or less volatile economic times than we're in right now, what should those considerations be for either repeat homeowners or certainly those first-time home buyers that are looking to purchase a home at this time, given that those interest rates are relatively high, but like you said, those payments they're making on their mortgage could be much lower in the future. What steps do they have ahead of them that they can take after they've made this purchase at these current rates if things do improve?
So the first is refinancing, which is always an opportunity to you. And I'll say that's the nice thing of working with a small broker or anyone in this business is we're going to watch your loan. We're going to make sure that you're staying in a good position and not just sitting out there overpaying on your loan any longer than you have to. That's part of our job in the financing side, is to keep you in that good spot. But otherwise, again, it's really just a standpoint of how you structure the financing and what makes the most sense. Like I tell people right now, cash is king. You don't want to spend all of your money into a down payment just to make that payment feel comfortable. If you can, again, stomach the payment for 6 to 8 months at a higher point, save your cash, use it to your advantage, and then that's going to help you in the future, whether it's, hey, bringing down your balance a little bit, buying down your interest rate even more when that time comes, and giving you the biggest bang for your buck versus just throwing money into a loan today that we know we are going to refinance you out of when it's available. So it's just a matter of where you use your money and when, really, in my opinion.
Yeah, and timing is everything in this, because we've seen even just a few months ago where the housing market was in more of a buyer's market state. Now it's back into more of a seller's market state that has jumped back and forth over even just the last year or 18 months or so. And so for those first-time prospective home buyers, those that are looking to purchase a home for the first time, and this is not exactly the ideal time to be necessarily thinking about that on the financial side of things, but for those that do have those means available to them, what considerations are you working with those sort of clients on as they're putting forth this effort to buy a home in a very competitive market, in an expensive market where mortgage rates are going to be higher than they have been in the past?
So it's really about setting yourself up for success. And really, I mean, that comes to talking to me, hopefully long before you ever want to buy a house. I mean, we're going to put you on an actual plan of, hey, these are the debts and things in front of you. These are the things that you have responsibilities for otherwise aside from the house. Can you manage all those obligations together? And can you qualify that way? That's the other piece. What can we actually do for you? So putting those pieces in place, knowing what you can afford, and getting things paid off ahead of time is going to be a big help to making sure that things are affordable in that piece. But I will tell you, the big buzz term these days is the down payment assistances and things like that. And I'll tell you, there's a ton of programs out there for that. But on the flip side, those rates are higher. There's restrictions with those things. So it's something that I talk to a lot of my first-time buyers about, of the benefits or drawbacks of saving your own money versus applying for these different programs and where that falls in your future of your mortgage. Because again, it's not just about today or tomorrow or next year. This is hopefully a house and an investment that's going to carry your future forward and build something for you. So you want to have the optionality and the control of that, let's call it.
And on that note, you mentioned, it was an interesting point, hopefully that they talk to you well before they're ready to be purchasing a home. What is that timeline like, especially right now, given the state of the market? How far back before someone's ready to purchase a home should they be talking to a broker like yourself?
So usually I say about 90 days is a good starting point, because in that time, that gives you enough point to, hey, if you have a debt or two that's concerning to you, work to pay that off a little bit. If you're some money short on maybe what you want for your down payment or your cost of the loan, you have some time to build that up. But it's a good time frame where, hey, you can still start seeing things in the market of maybe, hey, what you want might be coming available, and say, hey, this is my kind of target point. I'm going to be able to work towards that. These are the conscious steps to do so. Versus, hey, I'm poking around online. I find a house I like. I want to make an offer. And now you're spinning your wheels trying to get all this done right away to make an offer. And again, like you said, a very competitive market that maybe you don't have all your ducks in a row. Don't rush something this big of a decision. Give yourself the time and grace to understand what you're getting into.
More information can be found on nextdoorlending.com. Get in contact with Stephen and other brokers at Next Door Lending right here in our local area, nextdoorlending.com. And being a broker, it's well beyond just helping someone go through the process of purchasing that home. There's other services within that, or other steps that you're helping these prospective home buyers or those that are looking to sell a home even as they're going through this process. What are some of those services that you're providing beyond just these are the homes that are within your price range, these are what are available, and getting them in contact with those sellers?
Great question. So honestly, I'm not even getting in contact with the sellers. I partner with a bunch of realtors in the area to make that search and help with that side. But the biggest thing from the broker side is the optionality. You're talking to me, I'm helping set up the plan, I'm helping get things in the right direction. But I have on average 40 different lenders that we work with to look at the opportunities for a specific buyer. So we can look at 10 different lenders for an assistance program, 10 different lenders for a conventional program, all of the things that are out there. And it gives us, again, that optionality versus some other places that you're going to be tied to 3, 4, 5 programs, and that's it. But it's also the service level. When you talk to a small broker in your local community, I'm the one you're working with. I'm going to be guiding you through the entire process. And you want me to come meet you? Great, I'm going to do it. Versus so much of this industry has moved to just a gigantic phone call model where you're just going to be talking to 5, 10, 15 different people from a company on the phone. Sometimes that's fine, but when you're buying a house and doing such a financial and emotional commitment, you want to know you have someone with you that's going to help you each step of the way. And that's the difference we bring.
Yeah, someone in your local area that knows the local area, knows the local realtors, and is familiar with what's available can be a really big extra benefit going through a local broker. And so, Stephen, a couple more minutes with you before we'll need to move on today. Anything else that we should be thinking about that we haven't discussed yet about the current housing market, especially for those that are looking to buy in a very competitive market that's favoring those selling homes at this time?
Yes, absolutely. So again, getting your ducks in a row right ahead is important, making sure you know what down payments look like, what payments look like, what you're comfortable with to make the strongest offer you can. And working again with someone local that might have those relationships with the selling side of things to be able to talk through what the offers look like, what they're looking for, and what they want to be able to purchase. But I'd say the other big thing, and this is a brief mention, and then we can always look into further, is the new credit score changes that are coming from the government. There is changes coming May 1st that's going to potentially charge buyers with higher credit scores more based on their loan. This is a government idea that's hopefully hoping to offset and level the playing field of home ownership. But we're all very curious in the industry to see how this plays out and what the actual dollars and cents looks like. So again, this is where it's extremely important to talk to a professional like myself so that you can see what this impact does. Even if you were pre-approved a month ago, this could change that picture. We need to take a look again.
More information and ways to get in contact with Steve can be found at nextdoorlending.com or call him 248-983-5055 for information and consultation. Steve, thank you so much for being with us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Tyler. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, glad to have you on. Plenty of more information on the other side of the break about housing in our local area, particularly for those who are getting up there in age and looking to either downsize or get into a senior living facility. There's plenty of options in our local area. And coming up next, Tracy Edelstein from Jewish Senior Life joins us to talk about some of those options right here on the Megacast.
Ronnie started doing prescription pills at the age of 15. And by 19, he died. If your child is struggling with drug use, try not to be too proud to reach out for help. Don't be worried about what the neighbor will think or your family. Just get your child the help they need. Sometimes it's the hard road to take, but the hard road is nothing compared to living with the fact that your child is no longer with you.
There's hope and help at drugfree.org.
Watch Civic Center TV with our brand new live captions. To turn on live captions, go to civiccentertv.com and click Watch Live. In your web browser, click on the Options tab in the top right and find the Accessibilities tab. Then just switch on live captions to heighten your enjoyment of our local programming. Thank you so much for watching Civic Center TV. Stop by West Bloomfield Town Hall June 14th and get your health in check at the 14th Annual Greater West Bloomfield Health and Wellness Fair. Over 40 businesses, organizations, and vendors take the time to showcase healthy practices, tips, and resources for the community. Young or old, there's something for everyone and everybody. 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Wednesday, June 14th, the 14th Annual Greater West Bloomfield Health and Wellness Fair. This community update from Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Oakland County and the state of Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. You can learn more about our program at civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find more information on all of our partnering stations across Oakland County and throughout the state of Michigan, including our co-flagship at My Michigan TV, and find all of our full shows and each individual segment on demand as well. civiccentertv.com/megacast. And as always, you can join us for our full 1-hour marathon of a program Monday through Friday live from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on civiccentertv.com. Joining us now on the Megacast from Jewish Senior Life is Tracy Edelstein, who is quite the expert on how you as a senior or the seniors in your life can approach housing at this point in their life. Maybe it's time to downsize. Maybe it's time to get into a facility with a little bit more services that are along the needs of what you need day to day without necessarily having constant calls to your family. There are resources, there are services that are available to you right here in our local area, and she's here to join us to talk about those right now. Tracy, thank you for being with us today.
Hi, Tyler. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you on to talk about the issue of senior housing, and particularly that transition from maybe living in your house or living in your apartment where you've been for a number of years. Maybe you've raised your family there, but at this point in your life, it's you and maybe your significant other, or it's you alone, and you need to rethink where you're living and whether or not that's the right situation for you. There's so much to consider in these situations for seniors, especially those that maybe are living alone. So where should they start in terms of making that plan to move forward, either downsizing into a different home or going into another facility that has some more resources along the lines of their needs?
Right. You took the words out of my mouth. It's a very emotional transition. No one is excited to move. Especially after, like you said, many years raising a family, memories in a home. And so that's one of the things at Jewish Senior Life, we really hold people's hand through this process because it is very emotional. And there are many options out there, which is a great thing for our community members because you can have your opportunities to look around, see what exists. What are levels of care? What is independent living versus assisted living? What is HUD subsidized housing versus market rent housing? So there's a lot to learn. And when you don't have the need to know it, it's quite a learning curve at the beginning and very overwhelming, in addition to that emotional transition that we just spoke about. And so, really making a checklist of, what's included, what are the amenities, what if I need more support as I age? What's included? Meals, transportation. Are there additional costs? Are my utilities included? Do I have a parking spot? Can I take your transportation if I don't want to drive one day because the weather is kind of snowy or rainy? So those are things that when you think about, as we're all aging, and we're going to be lucky if we get to become older, I always say, is that what can I anticipate my needs might be? And look at the whole picture, which is not an easy thing to face. But that way, you know, when you do make a move, people say to us, we want to make one move. We don't want to keep moving. So doing the research, going to see places, talking to experts in the field, and really learning about what you can have, because you can really live an independent life for many, many years once you do decide to make a move to an older adult community.
And what sort of resources are available to help seniors explore that? Because in many cases, it's going to be a family effort. They're working on that with maybe their kids or other close family that's nearby, or friends in their life that maybe have gone through that process. And that's certainly helpful, but the number of resources that are available, the variety of senior housing certainly that's available here in Oakland County, there is so much out there and there's so much information to take in to make that most informed decision. So what resources are available to help these people make that decision with as much information as possible, but not so much that they're getting overwhelmed doing it all themselves?
Right. And that's one of the things that we do at Jewish Senior Life. If we're not the right fit for you, we can help you with other ideas, because we've been around since 1907. And so we've been one of the longstanding communities in our area in Michigan. But there are places like Area Agency on Aging 1B, Jewish Family Service, agencies of any social service type that might have social workers or referral centers, which both of those agencies do, that can refer you. You can also look at LARA, which is the Michigan licensing website. So if the communities you're looking for are licensed in the state of Michigan, which many assisted livings are and adult foster care homes, you can look at their ratings and see if there have been any concerns brought up that have been documented. And, you know, word of mouth is still really big around here. People have had loved ones live this place or that place. And so talking to your friends and family is really important as well. In regard to family, you're right. A lot of adult children are supporting their loved ones in making these moves. And what we always say to people is, have your wishes known, so that if a crisis occurs and you cannot make those decisions, that your loved ones and those making decisions on your behalf know what your wants are. And so prior to that, though, let's not wait until there's a crisis. We want you to do the research. We want you to be the decision maker and have control over your life for as long as possible.
Yeah, and cost is also a critical part of this, because as you said, making this decision, you want to limit the number of times you're moving. It's terrible to move. Moving is not fun for anyone at any age, and especially if you're making a move in the later stages of your life. You want to make sure that when you're making that move, it's one that's going to be supportive of you for a number of years, and hopefully throughout a vibrant senior. In many of those cases, you're looking for housing ways to have that variability, whether it's an assisted living facility or a senior living facility that has some assisted living elements. Cost also plays a big factor in it, because some of them are very affordable and some of them are extremely expensive and provide similar services. So how does an organization like Jewish Family Service consult with individuals and with their families to make that right decision and find those resources that are available but within somebody's price range, so they're not, it's not costing them an arm and a leg to live for the next 15 years or so?
Exactly. And so here at Jewish Senior Life, we have a lot of social workers on staff already. So a lot of times when you call us, we can walk you through the whole process. And we have options from affordable housing through HUD to market rent pricing. So we really have for most, and we're able to educate our callers, inquirers, those that come in for a tour, about all of the options we have. And that way we can say, okay, if your income is this or under, you can apply for our affordable housing program. If it's not, maybe we have a grant or a special incentive going on, so that's going to be cost savings for you. So we really look at the whole picture. We also pride ourselves in being very affordable in the world of older adult communities. So when we look at our surrounding competitors, if you will, our price points are very, very fair. We feel we are a nonprofit, we are mission based, and so our goal is for that people, when they come decide to live with us, that they live here through the rest of their lives. And of course, people of all faiths and beliefs are welcome. I know Jewish is in our name, but we just say we care for people Jewishly, but we are open to everybody.
More information can be found on the website at jslmi.org. That's jslmi.org for more information and resources from Jewish Senior Life. Joining us on the program is their Director of Residential Marketing and Community Relations, Tracy Prokopnik-Edelstein, on today's edition of the Megacast. And in terms of finding that right situation, that's one thing that's a big part of this process. The next step is arguably the most important. It's getting them from point A to point Z and actually making that move. So what sort of resources are available to them in that regard, getting them from their home they're currently in to the one that they're going to be spending hopefully the rest of their life in a lot of comfort?
Well, when I started 25 years ago, it seemed to me that there were less resources. And now I'm thrilled to say that there are many more options for people to consider that we can share with them when they decide to make the move. And it really helps take some stress off of their shoulders. One of the resources would be someone to help them with right sizing. You may have heard of the term downsizing. We now say right sizing. There are professionals out there that are professional move managers, right sizers. Sometimes they are also a real estate agent. So sometimes you can call one person and have all of those moving essentials taken care of by that one person. One-stop shopping. And if we are talking to our folks moving in, we say, what do you want to keep? What do you need to keep? What do you want to give to loved ones? And really, if you don't decide on the latter, then you won't know potentially who is going to end up with some of those items, which some of them may be very sentimental. So we want to make sure that people know that sometimes taking pictures and putting them in an album of your child's kindergarten painting, which is very precious, I know, because I have those too. But maybe making an album of some of the items that you no longer really physically, tangibly need, but you want to still have as a memory. There are ideas, and people in this business have the best ideas.
More information and ways to get in contact with Jewish Senior Life for some of these resources can be found at jslmi.org. Tracy, before we let you go, we got about 1 minute left. Any other lasting advice that we haven't talked about yet, or other topics that should be front of people's mind as they're making this move themselves?
Well, I appreciate hearing your prior presenter, Stephen, about real estate. It's a seller's market right now. It's a great time to move. Your house is usually often your biggest asset, and that's going to help sustain you if you do decide to move to a community. And so getting with a smart real estate agent and selling at the right time, we're happy to give out those resources as well. We work with a lot of people that specialize in working with older adults and these types of moves.
And as Tracy said, if they're not able to provide what you need to you or to your family member or family members, they'll help you point to other resources available in our community, other organizations that do similar work that may be more along the lines of what you're looking for. So Tracy, thank you so much for joining us to tell us some resources that are available and give that helpful advice to families and individuals that are looking to right size their life as they go into the latter years of life.
Thank you for having me.
jslmi.org is their website. You can also call Jewish Senior Life for more information and consultation at 248-661-1836, 248-661-1836. That is going to do it for today's edition of the Megacast. As always, you can find us online on civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Our full shows and each segment on demand, and links to all of our partnering stations, including more original programming from stations in your hometown all throughout Oakland County. civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Big thank you to each of our guests for joining us today, and of course to our dedicated crew, Jared Clark at the studio of My Michigan TV, and Calvin Brown, our director at Master Control at Green Media Center in West Bloomfield. Until next time, I'm Tyler Kieft. Take care of each other, and we'll see you very soon.